It's Monday, and you know what that means. The Jersey First Television Network proudly brings to you the latest edition of Real Talk. And certainly, I am the generational talent in Garden State Media and your leader for trustworthy opinion journalism. That's right, folks. It's the most handsome face that runs the place. It's me, Fernando Uribe. Happy Monday. I want to thank you all for tuning in from wherever and however you may be doing so on this, the 13th of July, here as the dog days of summer continue. But we never take a break here, ladies and gentlemen, on the Jersey First Television Network, as we're always working to bring you excellent journalism, because, again, when you think about excellence, you spell it U-R-I-B-E. Once again, I want to thank you all for tuning in here, of course, from wherever and however you may be doing so on all of your social media platforms, whether or not it's on Facebook, Instagram, and X, also on YouTube. Make sure you follow and like us. It takes a few seconds just to show support for the brand. Again, helps the show grow and shows your support for fearless independent journalism, which we bring you here every week on Jersey First. Again, make sure you like, follow all of our brands, and of course, whether you get your podcast on Spotify or SoundCloud, download Jersey First. And of course, take it with you wherever it is, whether you're going down the shore, maybe coming back from Tiki Mondays, down in Point Pleasant, maybe you're walking the dog. Hopefully, you're staying, hydrated out there during these really hot days. Again, please look after your neighbors, elderly neighbors, of course, and children and your pets, again, during these very hot days here in July. And once again, thank you for supporting Jersey First TV. And of course, folks, nobody does it better than Jersey First TV. Of course, always educating and advocating for the residents here in the great state of New Jersey. That's right. Brand new episodes of Real Talk premiere every Monday. Of course, check your local listings for start times. And brand new episodes of Bridging the Gap premiere every Thursday with my outstanding teammates, Zach Dora and Tyler Simpson. Again, check them out every Thursday, Bridging the Gap, with the dream team there of Zach and Tyler here on Jersey First TV. And as always, as a reminder, ladies and gentlemen, this week's edition of Real Talk here with Jersey First TV is sponsored by Duran Entities. Three great restaurants, three great vibes, three great ways to enjoy the summer and the rest of 2026, courtesy of Duran Entities.
Duran Entities has now joined Real Talk with Fernando Uribe and Fernando Uribe Media. Enjoy delicious food, excellent watch parties, and a wonderful atmosphere at any of our three incredible restaurants. Son Cubano, located at 40-4 Riverwalk Place in West New York, New Jersey. Ventanas at the Modern, located at 200 Park Avenue in Fort Lee, New Jersey. And Solas, located at 25 River Drive South in downtown Jersey City. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you there.
That's right, folks. Special thank you once again to Duran Entities, our sponsors here on Real Talk via Jersey First TV. Folks, you want to stick around for final thoughts? It's going to be a good one here, as you know what? I always make it a point to call out all the bad actors here in New Jersey, whether it's in academia, higher learning, whether it's in activism, even elected officials or government employees. But folks, as we all know, some of the most guilty culprits of bad acting here in New Jersey is, of course, all the propagandists who masquerade as journalists. And well, when I think about propagandists, I think about, of course, Max Pizarro. Yes, the most feminine-looking cowboy I've ever seen. You know who he is, the editor of Insider NJ, who, let's be honest, I mean, if he even works during the summer, that's a miracle. But in the few attempts he does do any work, I'll tell you why a lot of his columns and who he endorses or publishes is some of the worst garbage you'll ever see online, folks. And again, you can expect that from Insider NJ, courtesy of its editor, Max Pizarro. And speaking of lazy and just bad journalism, yeah, folks, you can always rely on Uncle Dave. Si este huevón, eso no sirve para nada, como siempre. But I'll tell you the latest example of him catering to illegals. And when he has a chance to talk to activists who coddle illegals, you would think that maybe Uncle Dave would ask a hard question. Now, folks, you have a better chance of him telling you what's on special on Uber Eats and Grubhub than Uncle Dave actually doing some real work. On that later during Final Thoughts. And also during a special comment, I'll talk about my experience last week with a great group of conservative influencers who are making a dent and making real impacts here in New Jersey. A shout out to Kaidi, Defend the Republic, Wake Up NJ, and others who I got a chance to collaborate with last week. More on that during a special comment. Folks, again, it is election season, even though it's July, and I don't know about you, but a lot of people in New Jersey sometimes take the summer off and aren't paying attention. That's not the case during this election season. Everyone's paying attention. We have an important U.S. Senate race, more on that later. And of course, all 12 congressional districts are up for grabs in the House of Representatives during the upcoming midterm elections. And you know what? I had a chance to talk to this guy early during the springtime, and he's the guy who you got to watch out for in the 11th Congressional District. He's a Republican candidate running in CD 11 against an incumbent who, let's be honest, folks, is one of the more dangerous far-left Democratic socialists you'll ever meet. But you know what? Here to stop her is my guest tonight. He's the CD 11 candidate representing the Republican Party. Folks, he's the distinguished Joe Hathaway, joins us live on Real Talk. Joe, welcome back, brother.
Hey, Fernando. Thanks so much for having me. Great to be back.
Good to have you back here. And folks, again, if you're not familiar with the campaign, again, please go to joehathawayforcongress.com. That's Joe Hathaway, FOR Congress.com. If you're looking to donate your time, but more importantly, your dollars. Important cause to try to flip the 11th Congressional District back to some sort of reasonableness and rationality and just normalcy, folks. We're not getting that with the incumbent right now, and hopefully Joe Hathaway can do something about that coming up in November. So, Joe, good to see you, man. Hope you're having a good summer. I know you've been busy, man. You took a little bit of a vacation, but you're back to work here. But for our audience that maybe didn't catch you during the springtime, when I interviewed right before the special election, leading up into November, tell us more about Joe Hathaway and, quite frankly, why you're the better choice this November.
Sure. Well, yeah, Fernando, look, I'm born and raised in New Jersey, grew up in Clifton, not too far from you right now. And for the last 20 years of my life, outside of spending 4 years up at Yale playing football, I've been in CD 11. The last 4 I've spent at the local level serving my community here in Randolph as a councilman and also as a mayor last year. And look, while the results in April weren't what we were hoping for, we saw a lot of good data come out of that special election that we're going to put right to work in November to help flip this seat. I mean, if you look at the parts of our district, which spans some of Morris County, Essex County, a little bit of Passaic County, we actually really overperformed in some of the areas like Essex County, where we saw towns like Livingston and Milburn and some of the Caldos, actually every town but 2, moved to the right in this race. And what that tells me is that voters in our district of both sides of the aisle want a return to sanity in this election. And the choice right now is very, very clear. You have a guy like me who has served at the local level, who's gotten things done, who has put our taxpayers and our constituents first and wants to bring common sense solutions to the table. And you have Ana Lilia Mejia, who during the special election ran on a platform of socialist economic policies, anti-law enforcement, demonizing our Jewish community in the district. And she's cashed in on each and every one of those campaign promises since she got down to Washington. So for voters this November, the choice is a very clear one. It's more socialism that we're seeing out of the Democratic Party, or a return to sanity and common sense by electing a local Republican leader.
I mean, Joe, what's really infuriating about this election cycle, almost every election cycle in New Jersey, is that at the end of the day, the vote blue, no matter who crowd, live in such a bubble and within their own echo chamber that, I mean, it pissed me off watching the debate between you and Ana Lilia Mejia, where you could tell she was clearly reading and she has no original thoughts. And her blueprint really is a lot of what the far left represents in New Jersey. I hate the president. Republicans are bad. Here's some free stuff. And at the end of the day, you know what? We have to coddle illegals because they're more important than American citizens. I mean, just saying that out loud seems madness to me, even like 10 years ago. But this is where we are in today's Democrat Party. And it seems like the incumbent there, Ana Lilia Mejia, really exemplifies that. I mean, listen, I live up here in Hudson County. I look in New York City every day, and I just see what's happened to New York City under the madness of Zohran Mamdani as a far left, I'll call him a jihadist socialist there in Manhattan. But it seems that, Ana Lilia, with no county line anymore, obviously Republicans and Democrats have benefited from that. She really got across a field of more moderate Democrats. And, the 11th Congressional District never was looked upon as like this far left, crazy, progressive district. I mean, for example, I live in the 8th Congressional District, and, while I have some disagreements with my representative, Rob Menendez, I don't think he's that far left. I mean, some of his antics lately at Delaney Hall and the other bullshit he does with LaMonica MacGyver and others, really irritates me. But by and large, he got primaried by a progressive, and he won that kind of easily. But it seems like progressives and the DSA crowd are really growing. It's almost like a cancer in New Jersey, and it looks like maybe CD11 is like ground zero for this ridiculous ideology.
Yeah, Fernando, you're not wrong. I mean, look, we talked about this in the special election that Ana Lily Mejia, should she win that race, would pave the way, and she has, for these out of control DSA candidates we're seeing win in primaries in New York, out in Colorado. She made it acceptable. She made it okay for candidates to run on this crazy rhetoric, and be embraced by, or at least be, placated to by Democrats in the party. And I got to tell you, one, I think it's going to wake a lot of people up this November. I think people on both sides of the aisle that have a shred of common sense are going to understand that this is not the future that we want for our country or for New Jersey, and that will bode well for us. But people also have to remember that in NJ11, those other districts, the horses left the barn. Those races, there's no coming back. This is a district where if we put the right coalition together, we can win. And when you have someone like Mejia going down to Washington now saying things like she understands that her assignment is to capture governing power, to get radicals elected across all levels of government, to shape a narrative and create a villain, and then to capture governing power. Fernando, that sounds like, to me, something out of the Saul Alinsky Rules for Radicals playbook versus solving any sort of issues that we need to help people with here in New Jersey, like affordability and energy costs and education. So New Jersey's, you are exactly right. New Jersey 11 is ground zero right now for the future of the DSA party. And I believe we have the opportunity for common sense Republicans, independents, and Democrats to come together and stop it this November.
And it's interesting, a couple of weeks ago, I had the representative from the 5th Congressional District, Josh Gottheimer, on. And, a lot of Democrats that I know, or progressives that watch this show, or that I know personally, messaged me and said, oh, wow, you must be ecstatic. You're going to have a Republican like Josh Gottheimer. And I'm like, well, first of all, that's not true. Josh would never say he's a Republican, and his voting record doesn't demonstrate that either. I mean, he's a centrist Democrat. Obviously, he's very pro-Israel, which it seems that the far left of the Democrat Party is very anti-Israel, pushing a lot of anti-Semitic rhetorics, obviously. And, even he was pushing back on a lot of the far left progressive narratives that, candidates like Mejia is running on. Obviously, we saw in the 12th Congressional District with Adam Hathaway, who's a full-blown jihadist, in my opinion. I mean, if this guy gets elected, I mean, there needs to be a serious evaluation about whether or not to give security credentials to this guy. I mean, based on his background. But it just seemed like Gottheimer was very, very leery of far-left Democrats in his own party. And you saw that a couple of weeks ago. I think, he did come out and called out radical leftist podcasters like Hassan Piker and others that are very toxic within the Democrat Party. Seems like Ana Lily Mejia isn't willing to do that. And the blueprint's simple. I don't like the president. I think Republicans are evil, illegals. No one's illegal. Who cares about borders? Who cares if we bankrupt New Jersey, but we have to, spend money on illegals? I mean, that seems to be the platform she's running on. And at some point, it's like, can people just wake up to the fact that, the president nor Republicans in Washington have anything to do with New Jersey's property taxes, have anything to do with the gas tax going up, even though the cost of gas is down, that the tolls on the Turnpike and Parkway are, continue to go up. That's because of Democrats in New Jersey, specifically in Trenton, which have nothing to do with Democrats in Washington. But it seems almost impossible, Joe, to make that distinction in this climate where it's so tribal almost.
Yeah, look, Fernando, I think you're right. And look, when it comes to Hathaway, who's palled around with terrorists for seemingly decades at this point, it's insane. And by the way, that's someone that Ana Lily Mejia said she is proud to serve with down in Washington, right? So that should give everyone extreme pause when thinking about where she's at on the spectrum. But, you brought up something that I think is important. And it's, this notion that the president has kind of overtaken any conversations when it comes to politics. And I look, it's something I've been very clear about. And you kind of got to it with talking about the local issues. I believe the job at the end of the day for a representative is to put the district first, to put the people of NJ11 first. And if the president or our party is going to do things that are good for the district, I support those policies, whether it's, reducing tax burdens, whether it's improving our border security or supporting our law enforcement community. I'm in lockstep with those. And if there's things that they're going to do that I think is bad for the people of my district, I think it's my job to stand against it. Right. And I think it's key to this race. And I can tell you, I've built a track record over my time serving at the local level of being independent when I think it's the right thing to do for my district. And here in Randolph, I serve on a council of all Republicans, and I was the only Republican this year to vote against an 8% budget increase at the local level because I think it's wrong for people in my town. Right? I voted against a 10% increase to the mayor and council's salary because I think it's wrong to do that with taxpayer dollars. So at the end of the day, whether it's here at home or down in Washington, I will always put my constituents first before politics, before the president, before the party. And you know what? I think that's what voters want at the end of the day. And that is such a key difference between me and Anna Lilia Mejia.
Folks, if you're just showing live right now, it is 6:15 right on the dot here on the East Coast. And my guest tonight is a candidate, Republican candidate, running in the 11th Congressional District coming up this November. He's Joe Hathaway, joins us live here on Real Talk. Folks, like, comment, and share. It takes a few seconds to show your support for fearless independent journalism, despite what any haters might have to say. It's always here. It's always fair. It's always Real Talk here on Jersey First TV. Joe Hathaway joins us live here right now. So, Joe, obviously, you learned something from the special election. You're moving forward. You're running, knocking on doors, doing town halls, obviously. And I know you'll take the high road here, but I don't have to. But I would argue that some of the biggest challenge I think Republicans have this election cycle, I just saw it this past Friday. I was in Middlesex County in South Brunswick, moderating a town hall for the U.S. Senate candidate running against Cory Booker, Justin Murphy. I've also been moderating some other events for other Republicans in other congressional districts. And it just seems like whether it's the national GOP or the NJ GOP, it just doesn't seem to be on the same, they're not on the same wavelength. I mean, listen, just 2 years ago, case in point, in the 9th Congressional District, I mean, Billy Prempeh had a real chance to beat Nellie Poe after she was not elected, she was selected into that race after Bill Pascrell passed away. And, he lost by almost 2 points. I mean, that was a close race. And if the national GOP just pumped $2 million, maybe not even just $1 million into that race, that would have made a difference, even this race. But it just seems like, and I don't want to jump on the new chair, Christine Hanlon. She was on the show earlier this spring, and she's got a tough job in front of her. I'm not trying to pile on her, but it just seems like the NJ GOP just cannot get out of its own way when there's really good candidates like yourself, Hillary Hersig in CD6, Greg Neely in CD12. You have Rosemary Pino in CD9. Obviously, it just seems, you have the incumbent Tom Kean in CD7. And my best wishes to him after returning from a bout with depression. That's nothing to laugh at. But it just seems like the NJ GOP isn't really working as hard, I think, as they should be to help out candidates like you in races that are really winnable.
Well, Fernando, look, I think one thing we have to do as Republicans in New Jersey is we have to work together as much as possible. We don't have the luxury, we don't have the numbers to be divided, to be, bickering with ourselves when it comes to races here in our state. And, look, I think, NJ11 is a perfect example of that. We, during the special election, we were able to galvanize Republicans around the state. We had events with Republicans, with Republican county chairs up and down the state, even down in South Jersey as well. So I think there are opportunities where we come together. And when we do, I think we have success. Again, I think NJ11 is one of those districts where, quite frankly, we need to do that, because while in the special election, we were able to bring over almost 10% of Democrats to vote for me in that race, which is, triple what you would normally see. We didn't win because we weren't able to get Republicans out at scale, right? And we have a numbers disadvantage. We need everybody, all Republicans at the national level, at the state level, at the county level, and local level, rowing in the same direction. Right? That is the way when we have success in our state. It's because we have good candidates with good ideas, yes, but we come together to make sure that our candidates get over the finish line. And you're right, it includes boots on the ground resources and includes financial resources too. So we're working hard at that, and we're going to make sure that we have those resources in place to prosecute this case, because when voters understand what's at stake, I believe it is a no-brainer choice to return to sanity in NJ11.
I agree with you completely. And listen, many Democrats across the country feel a little giddy right now. To use a little bit of a sports analogy here, I mean, they feel like the wind is to their back. That tends to be the case in a lot of midterm elections, regardless of who's in the White House. The opposing party tends to get a little, emboldened. We've seen it in recent decades, right? When there's a Democrat in the White House, Republicans tend to win back Congress. Same thing. But it just seems, and listen, I look across the river in New York and some very scary DSA type candidates in those House races. Obviously, we see it here in New Jersey and across the country in Colorado, for example. But Republicans, I think, still have a good chance to hold on to the House and even add some seats with the simple message of like, listen, interest rates are down. So if you're looking to buy a home, you can do that right now. Inflation is down. Listen, during the 4 years of Joe Biden, again, I'm not trying to do a whataboutism here, but during the 4 years of Joe Biden, we had some of the highest inflation in recent memory. That has gone down significantly. Okay. We've seen the economic benefits from the big, beautiful bill when it comes to, tax relief for seniors, for those that work in nightlife and hospitality. I mean, we're seeing it. Okay. We're seeing it in real time, but it just seems like maybe Republicans or the climate is so toxic that Republicans, I think, aren't doing a good enough job nationally in promoting these wins that are so obvious. Again, listen, I understand the president's polarizing. There are some things that bother me about some policies he takes, but overall, I voted for the man 3 times. I don't regret it any of the 3 times, but I think right now we're seeing some disarray in the party. We just saw the death of a senator in South Carolina. We're seeing a senator in Kentucky that who knows if he's even viable. The Republicans have a lot of work to do to try to keep the Senate, which I think they can, but also try to keep the House, because if they lose the House, it just seems like Democrats are just going to be trying to, impeach the president again, waste taxpayer dollars, bullshit investigations, instead of trying to address issues for the American people. Again, citizens, not illegals, citizens. And, when you're talking to people during this campaign trail, Joe, what are you hearing are the biggest pet peeves that voters are saying to you right now, whether it's about Mejia's positions or what you need to be doing more of?
Sure. Well, look, I think the first thing we're hearing is bigger picture, and you spoke to it a little bit there, Fernando, which is the consistent wins now that the Democrat Party has had amongst these far left radical DSA candidates is a big concern. It's a big concern for Republicans, of course. Might be a bigger concern for moderate or establishment everyday Democrats who may believe in Democrat values, but certainly don't believe in socialism. Certainly don't believe that the flag should be used as a napkin, or that we should have no borders or no police officers. So I think we do have a chance as Republicans to capitalize on that, again, because Mejia is running in lockstep with those candidates. So that's one thing I hear at a big picture. The other thing I hear at the local level is that she is not focused on the issues that matter to everyday people. To your point, she is more interested right now in impeaching. Now it's gone to the Supreme Court. She wants to impeach Supreme Court justices. She wants to bring more millions of dollars for the illegal criminals who are behind bars in Delaney Hall right now, not even in our district, by the way, than help any hardworking family back in this district. People are starting to realize, Fernando, she's got her priorities backwards. She's got her priorities backwards if you are a resident and you're focused on more affordability, lower cost of living, better opportunity for jobs and for education. But her priorities are in lockstep with the far radicals of her party. And I think people are starting to realize that. And what they ask of me is to never relent and continue to prosecute that message, because that's the only way we're going to get moderation and common sense and conservative values again, is if we continue to hold her accountable for what she's done.
Absolutely. Listen, it's important to hold her and other far left Democrats, progressives, even socialists accountable, especially here in New Jersey, when you can't blame Republicans, folks, for why your property taxes are the highest in the country. You can't blame Republicans for why the state budget is getting larger than some of the former Victoria's Secret models during the woke era of Victoria's Secrets. I mean, it's crazy. It's just like, it drives me bonkers. And especially here in New Jersey, to your point about her visiting Delaney Hall, going to Roxbury, protesting against the possible building of a new facility there, which is kind of asinine, because it's like, oh, great, cool. You want to do a victory lap for shutting down a possible detention center in Roxbury? Cool. Then we'll just move Jose and Juan to Mississippi. Cool. Great. Now instead of, being with the house more people here, we'll just move to Alabama. Why not? I mean, it's so politically myopic, but again, she's almost ground zero for this messaging, though, Joe, about coddling the illegals in New Jersey. And I was having this discussion at a Democrat event recently where someone said, I like you, man. You come up with facts. I mean, you're a little too conservative for me, but like, you're not even hyperbolic, with your opinions. Like you're trying to throw facts out there. Case in point, when it comes to Medicaid and it comes to what we provide for illegals. And again, for everybody at home, and Joe, you can interrupt me wherever I'm wrong on this narrative I'm about to give you and give the audience once again. Yes, illegals do not receive Medicaid directly from the federal government. But what New Jersey does, very much like New York and other blue states, is the dollars they get from Washington for Medicaid, they take it and they reappropriate it into a fund. Here in New Jersey, it's called NJ Family Care. So whether you're a low-income citizen in New Jersey or an illegal, NJ Family Care doesn't require you to provide your citizenship. So if a illegal or an pregnant illegal has anchor babies here, which we all know it happens regularly in New Jersey, which is why you're seeing schools overcrowded, but that's another conversation. Those Medicaid dollars go into NJ Family Care. So guess what? Billions of dollars come from Washington. Some are appropriated into that fund. So when we're seeing illegals get health care in New Jersey, that's not a lie. That's fact. And it just seems like, for whatever reason, people like Uribe Mejia run on it like, oh, yeah, it's fine. Federal tax dollars should go to coddle illegals, as if we don't coddle these people enough. Joe, the madness has to stop somewhere. Yeah. What's the best message for that?
Well, Fernando, look, I would take it a step further, because it's not just Uribe Mejia advocating for federal dollars to support illegal criminals. She's pressuring and putting the thumb on the scale for state dollars as well. I mean, we all saw when she and Rob Menendez and LaMonica MacGyver went down there and, lit the fuse on these protests down at Delaney Hall, which are completely nonsense, completely fabricated. And then what she did is she was one of these folks who put the pressure on Governor Sherrill, right? We all saw this, right? That $20 million increase in funding to lawyers to represent these illegal criminals. Taxpayer dollars paying for lawyers to advocate for illegal criminals. Let me tell you something else about her district, this district here in 11. You have town out in the western part of the district in Jefferson Township that has about a $4 million gap that they are dealing with because of pressures from the Highlands, from pressures from the broken school funding formula here in New Jersey, that they are staring down closing schools, closing busing, closing extracurricular sports activities. $4 million they needed to close the gap. Uribe Mejia is their representative. She should be advocating for school kids and families in her district at the price tag of $4 million. Instead, to your point, she's pressuring Governor Sherrill to spend 20 on illegal criminals that don't belong in this country. That is, in a nutshell, the priorities of Uribe Mejia for the people of our district, and the priorities of where the future of the Democrat Party is going when it comes to this country. And I believe at some point voters are going to want to return to sanity. I believe it's going to be this November. And when it does, the Democrat Party better watch out, because they are giving the reins over to these socialist candidates, and it's going to be bad for them. It's going to be bad for our whole country if we don't stop it.
Oh, absolutely. And listen, it's almost beyond the point of no return for a party that, again, we think about John Kennedy, we think about others that right now wouldn't even recognize the party. I mean, listen, just 30 years ago, Bill Clinton, when president, addressed a joint session of Congress and espoused a lot of the narratives about a secure border and about not coddling illegals. And guess what? 30 years later, the Democrat Party has completely abandoned, those talking points to as you mentioned, where Uribe Mejia, Adam Hathaway, Frank Pallone, other incumbents, LaMonica MacGyver. It seems like Democrats are more interested in the theatrics, though, Joe, of going to the Delaney Hall, being out there, being confrontational. Like, at what point does it make sense? See, maybe I was raised by different parents, but I know my parents were very good when they told me, hey, don't ever get in law enforcement's face. Don't be antagonistic. Don't go looking or picking fights with law enforcement. But what do we see? We see representatives like LaMonica MacGyver, who's a big girl already. So if she just sneezes on you, she's probably knocking you down. And let's be honest, this is a woman who should be in prison. If you or I assaulted a federal agent the way she did, we'd be in prison, Joe. It's that simple. It's not even semantics at this point. But you're seeing people like the incumbent here, Uribe Mejia, going to Delaney Hall to really grandstanding and being sanctimonious about the living conditions for people and screaming about, oh, there's no due process. I'm not a lawyer. You don't need to be one when you understand that an order of deportation, because you're here illegally, is due process, Joe?
Right, right. And again, it shows you where their priorities are. It shows you where that wing of the party that has now taken control of the Democrat Party is headed. And, look, I think this is an important point because you do have folks in the law enforcement community who are Democrats. You have, teachers who are Democrats. You have common sense people still, I believe, to some degree in the Democrat Party. And I think it's an important inflection point for those folks. Because I think they have to look, because look, if you think Republicans are the target at the end of the day for these DSA candidates, we're not. Look at some of these ultra left-wing candidates running in New York that they took out. Why did they take them out? They took them out because they're not socialists, because they don't hate cops and they don't hate Jews. That's the reality. That's the reality of the type of candidates who are winning in the Democratic Party. So if you are a member of the Democratic Party and you still believe that law enforcement is important, if you believe in respecting people of all religions, or you believe in capitalism and what's good about America, then I think people need to have a long, hard look in the mirror and decide what are they going to do, especially in this election right now, when we still have a chance to end this Mejia socialist experiment and return to common sense. Then they can focus on getting their house back in order and getting some kind of common sense back to, the way it used to be, like you said, where you had, Democrats and Republicans debating policy, but at the end of the day, everyone was still Americans. That is on the brink of being lost because of these DSA candidates, and Mejia is paving the way for them.
Absolutely. And and you mentioned about common sense. And folks, if you haven't checked out the website, please go to Joe Hathaway for Congress.com. Once again, that's Joe Hathaway, FOR, for Congress.com. Looking at your platform here, Joe, as you keep repeating common sense, it's true. I look at your platform here. For example, a federal first-time homebuyer tax freeze, as well as a refundable first-time homebuyer tax credit. Break that down for us in layman's terms for our audience, because that really is a very commonsensical policy. And should you win in November, and I hope you do, and you take office in January, obviously I know you'll have to talk to, not just your colleagues within your party, but talk to others across the aisle about passing something like this. So break down these two policy prescriptions that really, as you mentioned, are common sense.
Well, absolutely. Well, look, Fernando, I think you ask, young people, especially across our state, and, home ownership is becoming further and further out of reach for young people across our state. I certainly see it here in Randolph and in Morris County. And so, we want to look at common sense ways to make home ownership more affordable. I think there's a few things we can do. You hit on one of our key policy pillars, which is putting in a tax freeze for first-time home buyers. So in that year where they're purchasing that first home, instead of sending more money down to Washington, we're going to let them keep that money in their pocket. And I think some of that is working, again, hopefully in a bipartisan way to figure out, how much is it the value of a down payment, and is it a certain number, depending on other factors, the value of the home that they get to keep in that pocket, in their pockets. But when you buy a home, there's about 10 other things you have to buy, or, furniture and all these things you need that again, can make someone, be able to make that choice about buying a home or not. But we also have to look at things on the supply side, right? We have to incentivize folks who have been here, who maybe are ready to downsize, but, either don't want to take the tax implication or can't afford to downsize. We have to make things smarter for them too. And I think there's some common sense things we can do with very outdated legislation at the federal level that caps how much of a tax refund people can take on the sale of their primary residence. As you know, homes are so expensive in New Jersey. There's some really common sense things we can do there that can open up supply. And if we open up supply, as we know in economics, we can then drive down costs on the front end. So, our entire platform, whether it's home ownership, whether it's vocational training for people, whether it's investing in American energy to reduce costs, Fernando, it's all about solving the problems that we see every day in New Jersey. We have to get back to a place where we're sending people to Washington who have that as their priority rather than extremism.
Absolutely. Great policies that, again, on your platform. And another thing that really caught my eye here, as the guy who's still paying back loans from grad school, capping student loan interest, not blanket forgiveness, and also fighting interest that outpaces reality. Break this down a little bit more for us here and why that's so significant also, especially as you mentioned, for young people and even those that are older still paying back loans for whatever reason. Obviously, this is another plan on the platform that does make sense. So break it down for us, please.
Yeah, absolutely, Fernando. Look, first of all, we can't have student loan interest that outpaces people's ability to earn a living. I think we've seen how detrimental that can be and how it hamstrings people so early in their career, and they can kind of never get off that treadmill when interest continues to get out of control, especially if it outpaces inflation, right? So we want to put in a cap for these federal loans and actually reduce that cap to make it more manageable for people. But again, everything is a two-way street here. So while we're doing that, while we're lowering the interest rate for federal loans for folks, we want to also make sure that they're being equipped and prepared for the jobs that we need right now, that employers need in our state and in our country. And I see a huge opportunity to do that with, taking some of those federal dollars and putting it behind vocational training opportunities for people, right? While Ana Lilia Mejia wants to increase minimum wage by quadrupling it beyond measure, which would crush our small businesses, I want to get people out of minimum wage. I want to get people better trained, better careers, so they can get out there, not be saddled with more debt, not be saddled with more interest, but be ready to contribute right away. So they're not looking for a minimum wage goalpost move. They're looking to accelerate their career to earn a higher wage and contribute more to our society. These are the things that the American dream, I believe, was built on. They're right there in front of us. We just need to send leaders down who are focused on them and who want to make them real again.
And it's interesting about the minimum wage that you brought up. And folks, if you just joined us live right now, it is 6:30 here on the East Coast. My guest tonight is the Republican candidate running in the 11th Congressional District coming up this November, Joe Hathaway. Again, folks, like, comment, and share. It takes a few seconds to show your support for fearless independent journalism here on Jersey First TV. And it always drives me crazy. I talk to a lot of my progressive friends or Democrats that talk about the minimum wage. Well, it should be $25. It should be $30 an hour. Okay, well, understand something that, sure, big corporations, maybe like Amazon and Walmart, sure, that's great. If those are the industries you want to work in, that's fine. But a middle-of-the-road small business can't sustain itself. You can't live on that. And then when you're bankrupting small businesses, where are the small businesses? It's that level of my political myopia that contributes to that. Listen, case in point here in New Jersey, I mean, you're seeing small businesses even struggling with, New Jersey, obviously, they raised the minimum wage here to $15. Yes, it was incremental over the 8 years of the disaster that was Phil Murphy. But, radicals like Ana Lilia Mejia, even at the federal level, want to make it 25, 30, even higher. That just doesn't make sense, especially when, yes, big corporations can absorb that, but middle of the road or even small businesses cannot. And that dooms the economy because they also employ people, Joe.
Oh, no question. It may be the most dangerous piece of legislation in America right now for our small business community. Fernando, there's a couple ways to look at this. I mean, number one, remember, this isn't a New Jersey bill. This is a federal bill that she's put in. This would impact every state across America, raising the minimum wage to $25 an hour. Well, what happens when you look at a state like Mississippi or Arkansas or Louisiana, where their average wage, not minimum wage, average wage is $28 an hour? What do you do to a state economy in multiple states in our nation when you immediately change their entire economic operating structure? I mean, this is a policy that would cripple overnight the economies of numerous states across the country. It's incredibly dangerous. And, I've heard Ana Lilia Mejia, and, she's got the stones to say that when she talks to small business owners, the biggest thing they complain about are costs. I agree with her. The biggest issue is costs for our small businesses. What do you think the number one cost is for almost every small business in this country? It's wages, it's people. And they want to employ people, but they can't employ them when you make it financially unsustainable. What's going to happen, Fernando, is the people who work in the small businesses across our country, and probably in the large businesses too, one of a few things will happen. Number one, they won't have a job anymore. Number two, they'll be replaced by a robot at some point. Or number three, if they are still employed, that morning coffee or morning breakfast sandwich you like to get is going to cost $35 too, because that's the only way to make it work. So, again, these programs that have just been pushed by the left, that have been pushed by Mejia and socialists, are completely destructive, and they completely make no sense. Again, we should be getting people out of the minimum wage jobs, get them into their career, get them trained. That's how people achieve the American dream again, not by being trapped in a life sentence of minimum wage.
No, correct. Absolutely. Another aspect of your platform, which was interesting, I think this is a little, I would say it's a little difficult because I think it's multi-layered where both parties, I think, have dropped the ball on this, though, Joe. You talk about lowering healthcare costs and keeping families healthy. Now, I'm of the belief, and probably the only progressive, I think, policy I would ever not even embrace, but maybe would entertain in a conversation is, a healthier population is a better population, in the workplace, in the home. You can spend more time with family, you can be productive, et cetera, et cetera. But there seems to be this narrative, whether it's DSA members like Mejia and others across the river, others running for the House of Representatives this November, or even those running in the U.S. Senate races, obviously around the country, they talk about lowering healthcare costs. They throw around terms like Medicare for all. And on face value, it's almost like that's what they do to sort of like wheel people in as they're using the fish hooks to reel people in. But let's break down fact and fiction. When far left progressives talk about Medicare for all, what does that mean? And then also what you talk about here, lowering healthcare costs and keeping families healthy. What's realistic, Joe?
Yeah, well, look, it's a really good point, Fernando, and let's be incredibly clear about what these socialist policies about free healthcare and Medicare for all actually means, because we can look at it in other parts of the world that have some of these socialist types of healthcare plans. And what it means at the end of the day, Medicare for all does not mean healthcare for all. What it means is rationed healthcare. What it means is that you stop having the ability to make decisions when it comes to your health or your family's health, and the government now takes over that decision. We see it all the time. If you want that, elective surgery you're going to have to maybe, fix that knee that, has been aching for a few years, better be ready to get on the list. Better be ready to go to the doctor that the government tells you to go to, right? That is what universal healthcare actually means in practice. It goes against everything I think we believe in terms of individual freedom and individual choice. And it goes against everything that makes America's healthcare system, for its flaws, of course, still the strongest healthcare system around the world. Now, what I want to do is, like everything we do in a capitalist society, is to drive costs down by driving more competition, by deregulating some of the red tape that goes into our healthcare system, by breaking up some of these relationships between doctors and insurance companies and the PBM middlemen who control how drug prices get negotiated, right? We need to break up some of this old boys club and drive more competition, because what happens when we do that? Costs can come down, options can increase for families and for seniors. That's how we can get back to making healthcare more affordable for people. And we should, of course, be looking at things to increase preventative care, right? To keep people healthier for longer. But I can tell you right now that if we start going down the path of Medicare for all, it is going to result in dystopian rationed healthcare, not freedom, and not a healthier America.
No, I'm with you on that. I mean, now, do you feel confident, should you win in November and take office in January, that you can work with those across the aisle or even those within your own party to come to an agreement on some of these common sense, plans? Because again, at the end of the day, healthcare is so expensive. It's what's really making households decide between groceries or car payments or anything else. And it just seems that, again, I think both parties have dropped the ball for decades on this, Joe. And I'm with you. I don't think adopting something from Norway or Finland or Sweden, I think is even practical here. Where you're talking about countries, overseas with 10, 15 million people. There's 10 million people in New York City, for God's sakes, if not more. So with a country as vast as our population is, I don't have the right answer. I know you're on the right track with what you just outlined. I'm just hopeful that you can convince members of your own party and also those across the aisle to sort of adopt what you just mentioned.
Yeah, Fernando, I think we can. I think right now there's more of an appetite than ever in a bipartisan way to drive down healthcare costs. I think you're right. I think both parties understand that no one's been able to get it right, and both parties have different ways to go about it. But I do believe that there is a shared interest in lowering the cost of healthcare for the American people. And look, I think it speaks to a bigger need that you're getting at, which is sending more people down to Washington who are even able to come to the table with people they don't agree with and say, I'm not going to agree with everything you say. You're not going to agree with everything I say, but we have a job to do. We have a job for the people we represent back home, and we have a job to do for the American people, to move legislation, to find a solution that we can both stomach or agree with in some capacity, and that's how we're going to move America forward. Right now, I'll tell you, I think Congress has just gotten too far. You know, you look to the right or you look to the left, a lot of times extremism tends to be the loudest voice. We have to get to a place where we're willing to send people down who are willing to get to work no matter what and do what's right for the district. I believe that's the kind of next generation of leadership that we need. We're certainly not getting it in Mejia, who's said that, you know, she won't even work with moderate Democrats, much less work with any Republicans to get anything done. So
you want to talk about tribalism. You want to talk about tribalism. I mean, it's really out of control. I mean, again, it seems like CD11 is ground zero for this extremism and the tribalism that I think really is harming not just her own party, but I think the conversations that are necessary to come up with solutions that make sense. And another policy that really caught my eye on your platform, and again, folks, if you haven't checked it out already, Joe Hathaway for Congress.com. That's Joe Hathaway for Congress.com. Another interesting platform here for that I read here in my notes, Joe, is looking at investing in transportation that works for North Jersey families. I mean, listen, case in point, during this entire summer, spring, and summer going into this World Cup season, a big concern was about, you know, New Jerseyans or New Yorkers getting across into New Jersey, trying to go watch the World Cup. In general, just like mass transit and New Jersey Transit has just been abysmal for years. I mean, you talk about finishing the Gateway Tunnel on time, fully funding it, obviously expanding one-seat ride options to and from New York City, modernizing today's rail system while planning smart, targeted expansion. What is realistic, though, Joe? Again, should you get elected this summer, hopefully you do, and take office in January, what are some realistic, you know, expectations when it comes to not just funding the Gateway Tunnel, but really help expand about transit? Because, again, I live in Hudson County. I can walk a block, and I jump on a light rail. I can get to Hoboken, and then if I want to jump on a train to go, you know, Secaucus or MetLife Stadium later this fall to watch my Cowboys play the Giants, I can do that because it's maybe a 20-minute endeavor for me. That's not as easy for other residents in Bergen County, in Morris, or even around the state of New Jersey. What's realistic in CD11 about mass transit, about the Gateway Tunnel, and just your confidence in bringing back dollars into the 11th Congressional District?
Absolutely, Fernando. There's a couple things there that you hit on, I think, that are really important when it comes to transportation. You know, our district is still a commuter district to and from New York City. And I think one of the most effective things a legislator can do at the federal level is bring back resources, especially infrastructure and transportation resources. You know, when you talk about things like NJ Transit and our rail system, I think a lot of things you just hit on are also really important. That last mile transit, right, to and from someone's home, to and from the station, or to that point of emphasis that they want to get to. And whether it's, you know, light rail or other forms of transportation, those things are really important. They are currently lacking more in NJ11 than in other parts of the district. Look, you know, investing in rail is something that takes a lot of partnership, working across the aisle. It takes working with different entities like Amtrak and NJ Transit. And so, you know, some of the things we need to do is really, first of all, bring the funding here to truly assess what we can do both as a state and with state and federal dollars, and what we need to do to partner with people like Amtrak who own the rails and have a stake in this as well. And we also can't forget, you know, in the more western part of the district out here by me, you know, we're not a train town, we're a road town out here in Randolph and some of the western parts. And as you probably certainly remember, we had a devastating issue a couple years ago when I was mayor with the sinkholes out on Route 80. So whether it's rail or whether it's roads, New Jersey infrastructure is aging. It has been neglected for far too long. And I believe one of the most important jobs a congressman can do is to bring back dollars to fix it. So whether it's federal highways, whether it's, you know, state and local highways, I could tell you one of the things I'm most proud of that I was able to do as a mayor, even at the local level, was partner with the state to get key things done along Route 10 to make it a safer highway, to make it a more accessible roadway for people here. So, you know, these are the things, again, they're not the flashy, they're not the, you know, talking points on MSNBC that you're going to see from people like Mejia, who are more interested in the you know, kind of radical positions of their party. But they're the things that at the end of the day, people really need to count on our representatives. I'm the only one in this race who knows that and who wants to get those things done.
I mean, let's be honest. I mean, they salivate over there at MS Now when they have candidates like Mejia and other DSA, incumbents or candidates. When, let's be honest, I mean, I'm not sure if anybody watches MS Now unless, like, I don't know, you have like insomnia, you need something to help you fall asleep, and you don't want to rely on, pills or something. I mean, just flip on MS Now. I mean, that should work. That should work like nothing. But another thing that really caught my eye, because I know that you're very much emphatic as I am about safe communities, Joe, respecting law enforcement, supporting law enforcement, obviously backing law enforcement, securing the border. You also talk about obviously on your platform, combating fentanyl and drug trafficking right at the source. I mean, it's amazing to someone like me where you see the incumbent Ellen Mejia, who 6 years ago was more than happy to, espouse nonsense like abolish the police, abolish ICE. And it's nice when, you marry rich and you live in a nice little gateway, gated community, isolated from everybody else. But for the commoners, the regulars in New Jersey, respecting police is important. Respecting the work that our ICE agents do. And, I remember during the debate, she was pressed on, well, what do you want to do when it comes to ICE? And again, a little bit of a civics lesson here for our audience where, I mean, Immigration Customs Enforcement is an agency under the umbrella of the Department of Homeland Security. Now, again, that was reorganized when the DHS was created in 2003 after the terrorist attacks by Islamic extremists in 2001, which ironically, I mean, and unfortunately, we're going to be commemorating 25 years this September, which is crazy how the time flies. I almost cringe at what people like Enelia Mejia, Zohran Mamdani, and others are going to do. Listen, they might read off names for the terrorists. I mean, knowing them, I mean, that's how far left they become. But
it's on the table.
I wouldn't doubt it. But when we think about ICE, listen, I don't disagree. I think we need more training. 47 days isn't enough. I'm intellectually honest. Should we train them better? Absolutely. Should we have body cams? Certainly. I'm not even opposed to that, Joe. But this politically myopic talking point that Mejia and others adopt, like, well, abolish ICE. No, it's not that simple. It's not just, you can't just get rid of ICE. And what agency is going to be in charge of securing the border and helping agents remove dangerous illegals?
Yeah, look, this is a really important point, Fernando, and it's something I think, voters in our district have to be aware of, especially if you're in the law enforcement community, especially if you have family who's police officers or ICE agents at any level. Look, the fact is Ana Lily Mejia has built a career and has been on the record numerous times on her position about, hating the law enforcement community, to be frank. I mean, she's been on the record on social media saying that cops are racist, that cops give her nightmares. Even down in Washington, she had the chance to vote on a bill that supported our local law enforcement. She voted against it. You know why she voted against it? Because in the bill, it included language that pushed back on defund police rhetoric. She didn't want to vote for it because she believes in defunding police. She led the Working Families Party, a far-left activist organization that had trainings on how to defund police. So when you wonder how people...
Joe, and mind you, Joe, I'll let you finish, but mind you, when, yes, abolish the police, defund the police, but not a problem. She could live in her nice little suburban house, gated away from everybody else, have police in her suburb. That's cool for her, but it's cool for me, but not for thee. Right. And that's really what she epitomized. But continue. I'm sorry.
Oh, sure. No, you're absolutely right. And look, I think people come to our district, families especially, come to our district because they're safe, because they're a good quality of life to raise their families. And the last thing people want in our district is to have less police officers, to have less community safety. I mean, supporting our police here in Randolph was one of my biggest priorities. During my term as mayor, we had about a 15% gap in our staffing for a few years for our police department. We have a great local police department here in Randolph. I made sure that we got staffing up to full speed as mayor because that is something I believe in. And I know that parents, no matter what party they are, they want their communities to be safe. And when you have a congresswoman who's engaging in this rhetoric, who's pushing to abolish ICE, abolish police, it's dangerous. And what you end up having are situations like you saw in Newark, where you have criminals and crazed activists coming in and committing crimes with no repercussions. And it's, it gets to the foundation of what it means to be American, and it gets to the foundation, Fernando, of what's at stake this November.
Would you be willing to debate Enelia Mejia once again?
Well, Fernando, I've been willing to debate her anytime, anywhere. I think in the special, I agreed to 5 separate debates. The only reason we got her to do one was because she was caught lying about the League of Women Voters of all groups.
Yeah.
So, listen, my offer continues to stay on the table. I will take every opportunity I can to debate Miss Mejia and, have voters make the choice and see our positions side by side. Would love if she would take it a little more seriously than she took the last one, but I don't think she thinks that's in her interest. But look, I think there's gonna be a lot more people paying attention. There's gonna be a lot more people. There's gonna be double the number of voters who came out in April, and those voters are gonna want to see, what her positions are, what mine are, what they believe is right for the district, and what they believe has been enough of a socialist experiment to change direction and send the next generation Republican down to Washington. That's our opportunity.
And I remember the debate during the special election. I mean, you could tell she was reading the whole time, or someone was feeding her talking points. I mean, listen, it'd be great to have an in-person debate. I'd love to try to organize that. I know that David Wallstein, my good friend, the editor of the New Jersey Global, want to do that as well. We're not sure what she's going to be amenable to. I mean, again, I think if she could just hide behind social media or the talking points that she's had, she'd be happy to do that. But again, if you ran on transparency because you didn't like Democrats in the primary who aren't transparent, and now it turns out you're not transparent because you don't want to debate your Republican challenger, and now she has a record, right? To your point, now she's in the House of Representatives. She's now voting on bills or trying to introduce bills. Now she has a record. She should be held accountable on that.
100%. You can't cry transparency and accountability on one hand and then be unwilling to stand up there and defend your positions to the people who elected you to go to Washington. It just doesn't work that way. This isn't another activist group, with your friends here. This is the district. This is the House of Representatives, and it's important. And voters deserve a chance to see the two of us standing side by side. I hope she'll take that opportunity. I, would look forward to it. And again, look forward to the exchange of ideas, and she can defend her record, which she now has. I'm happy to defend my record and let the voters decide. It's the most democratic thing she could possibly do. I hope she doesn't hide from it.
Well, Joe, I mean, listen, I'll just put this out there. I mean, I might be stretching myself thin here because I'm moderating a lot of town halls for House candidates, also for Senate candidates. But if you need a town hall up in CD 11, I'm more than happy to donate my time and go moderate a town hall for you. I know you have a great following. I mean, we'll talk off the air later today and this week, but if you're interested in doing town hall, I'm your guy, man. I'm your guy to moderate. So
I love it.
Let's try to get that off the ground in the coming weeks ahead. Can we do that?
Let's do it. Let's wait till New Jersey Transit opens back up to regularly scheduled programming after the World Cup. But let's get you out here, Fernando. Let's do it, man.
I'll definitely do that. But before I let you go, a little bit of a quick lightning round to get to know Joe Hathaway, not just the candidate, but also the regular Jersey guy. So quick lightning round here. Sure. And I know you're a sports guy like myself. Have you been watching the World Cup? What have you liked? What have you not liked?
I tuned in a little bit. Tuned in certainly for the U.S. games, for Team USA. Obviously didn't end the way we wanted to, but really proud of what those guys were able to do. And look, anytime you get to cheer for America, it's a good thing. I got to tell you, I think we had to guilt Mejia into actually cheering for the U.S. I think she was cheering for Colombia or somebody else. So, but what else is new? But look, I'm a little more of an American football guy myself. I got to be honest with you, than the global version of the game. But it's such a special event. It comes around, so rarely that it comes to America. So I was all in for Team USA for sure.
Listen, I was rooting for Team USA. I mean, like my dad's Colombian, my mom's Cuban and Spaniard. Listen, I love rooting for my roots, but at the end of the day, I'm an American. So, I want to root for Team USA. I don't struggle to say that out loud. It's weird for someone like Mejia, who it's so tribal.
Who represents the country.
Yeah, like
she represents the country.
Yeah,
she should be cheering for Team USA.
It's not like she's like a career activist, right? Like with a do nothing job. Like she's actually earning a paycheck via taxpayer dollars, representing her district in the House. Like, would it kill you to root for Team USA? Like, my God, like listen, my dad's Colombian. I'll rock a Colombia jersey. I'll rock a Spain jersey. But my God, I'll rock a Team USA jersey first. And I'm not even an elected official, for Christ's sake, So kind of mind-boggling. But when we talk about sports, I mean, let's talk about, American football where you can actually hit people and not, I don't know, flop. I mean, sometimes, I mean, even that's becoming problematic. But I remember you're a Giants fan, so what do you expect out of the Giants coming up?
Oh, you got that one reversed there, fan. I'm a long-suffering Jets fan.
Oh, okay, that's right. My apologies. I know my dad
probably wishes we were Giants fans, but the family's a Jets family.
Oh, okay, listen, my dad's a diehard Jet fan. He immigrated here from Colombia in 1968. We all know that was a special year. And ever since then, he has been like the Colombian Joe Beningo. He has been like suffering. Now, mind you, to my dad's credit, he not only saw a Jets Super Bowl, but he saw 2 Knicks championships, and now he saw a 3rd Knicks championship. Yeah. So he's still grateful. My dad's the eternal optimist. He thinks he might see another Jets Super Bowl. Kind of interesting offseason. You're bringing back Geno Smith. It seems like the head coach safe for now. What have you thought of the offseason for the Jets, Joe?
Well, I hope your dad's hot streak continues. Maybe that's the good luck charm, and we can get a long sought after Super Bowl victory here from the Jets. Look, I think you see a lot of young talent on this team. I think you've seen a lot of strong draft classes come out with a long future ahead of us. So, I hope this team with Geno back behind quarterback, now a veteran who controls the ball and doesn't make mistakes. Hopefully that consistency is going to be helpful for the team and gives these young guys a chance to develop. And, with Aaron Glenn and a strong defense, you never know. The NFL is one of those leagues where, you get it right, you catch fire. We could have a Jet Super Bowl team this year. Who knows? Fernando?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting. Last season, I take my dad and my uncle to a Jet game every year. They're big Jet fans. And, we went to the Cowboy Jet game last year. And my dad was sitting there and he was like, wait a second. Why is half this building navy blue? Like, where do all these Cowboy fans come from? I mean, it's crazy, but listen, it's always an enjoyable experience. I don't like MetLife Stadium, the structure. It almost seems like a penitentiary, for both the Giants and Jets. It's kind of a weird building to go watch a game at. I don't know. I've never been a fan of it. But switching to baseball, and it seems like, listen, I'm a Yankee fan. I think you're a Met fan. I think it's going to be a bad summer. After the Knicks winning the championship and the World Cup is over, not a lot to look forward to with our baseball teams, man. What do you think?
Yeah, New York baseball's tough. The Mets have just kind of continued to, meander in a sub 500 malaise. Talking about stadiums though, I gotta say, I think Citi Field is still my favorite New York stadium experience. I took a couple of years ago, I took my son and took my dad there when he was still alive, and I still got that picture on my door. Probably one of my favorite memories. There's nothing more American. There's nothing more, family than going out to a ball game. We saw Pete Alonso hit 2 home runs that day. So it was a really special moment, and the best thing about baseball is there's always next year.
Yeah.
But, hopefully we can enjoy the baseball summer, win or lose, and, get ready for 2027.
And you know what's interesting? My cousin took me for my birthday. It was back in May during the Subway Series at Citi Field. We went to that Friday game, which the Yankees barely won because they, give away the other 2 games. But I say it all the time, and I'm a Yankee fan as much as anyone. But pound for pound, though, Joe, dollar for dollar, the better ballpark to watch baseball in is Citi Field. Like it's much more family friendly. Now again, I'm not a big fan of the parking, $50 for parking, because you can't unless you're going to walk into Flushing and walk.
Right.
You have to pay the parking there as opposed to Yankee Stadium. I always find street parking, and my car is there mysteriously afterwards. So I'm always lucky for that. But I just think the better ballpark experience, like the concession stand, the amenities in center field for families, the batting cages, the things for kids. I just think Citi Field is such a great atmosphere. And obviously, MLS is now obviously, the NYCFC team will be moving from Yankee Stadium across the street from Citi Field to their new ballpark in 2027. Obviously, Uncle Stevie is bringing the Hard Rock Casino Hotel right into that complex in Citi Field. So you're almost making the case, though, Joe, that in 3 years, your kid's a little bit older, right? You could almost make the case like you can catch a Met ball game on a Friday, you can catch the MLS game on a Saturday, maybe catch a show at the Hard Rock, and then check out Sunday, and you don't even have to go to Atlantic City.
Not a bad proposition. I'll tell you what, I spent a few years with one of my previous companies. The company was a sponsor of the New York Red Bulls right over in your backyard. I got to tell you, That's a great stadium too over in Harrison. Yeah. They do a really great job. It's a great family experience. I know a lot of friends who go over there. I mean, look, for sports fans, there's no better city than New York.
Yeah.
And it's always better when the teams play on the Jersey side.
Sure.
I'm a little biased there, but yeah, look, it's great to see investment in the area, and continues to be a great spot for people, and hopefully we continue to invest in those facilities here in New Jersey too, right, and get people to come over to our side, our neck of the woods, rather than just over in New York. So hopefully we see good things there to come.
Absolutely. Joe, I always appreciate your time on this program. I'm definitely rooting for you. You're a great candidate, a very commonsensical platform, fighting back against DSA and far left radical progressive Democrats that, quite frankly, are not just dooming their party, but I mean, it's dooming New Jersey and the country. And I really appreciate your faith in my brand of journalism, and I really appreciate your time. I'll give you the last word here tonight on Real Talk.
Well, thanks, Fernando. And I appreciate you having me on again. Can't wait to come back. And listen, I think we talked about it a lot. This race is a serious one. It's a serious choice this November for voters across every political spectrum. There's a lot at stake. There's a lot of issues that we still need to solve. And there's a lot of political challenges that we need leaders to cut through if we're ever going to get things done for the people here in New Jersey. I hope your viewers and your listeners got to hear a lot about my positions tonight, got to hear a lot about why I'm the right choice for this district. And I hope they all come out this November, cast that vote, return to sanity, and send a new generation of Republican leadership back down to Washington, Fernando. Thanks again.
Folks, you have great options on election day coming up in November. It starts with Joe Hathaway in the 11th Congressional District. Please visit joehathawayforcongress.com. That's Joe Hathaway, FOR, Congress.com. Donate your time, but more importantly, donate your dollars to help a good, commonsensical candidate in the 11th Congressional District coming up this November. Joe, I'm pulling for you. We'll talk again soon during the summer, and thank you for joining us here on Real Talk.
Thanks, Fernando.
Take care. Folks, good stuff there with Joe Hathaway running in the 11th Congressional District, and certainly, he raises a good point there. Analia Mejia, the Democratic Socialist, as she likes to identify herself as, now has a voting record. She's in the House of Representatives. She's voting on bills. She's introducing bills. She's making, engaging in semantics and theatrics by going to Delaney Hall as a member of the House of Representatives, and not just being an activist and having do nothing jobs forever as a professional organizer and activist, which we all know are bullshit jobs. Okay. But now she has a record, one that she has to run on. And I'm hoping that in the 11th Congressional District that people see through the bullshit. Okay. Everything that sucks in your life isn't because of the president or Republicans. If you live in New Jersey, okay, you can't blame Republicans. You can't blame the president. You have to blame her party. It's her party that's helped create the most expensive property taxes in the country, that continues to raise the gas tax on the state level and tolls on the Turnpike and Parkway, that gives billions of dollars to coddle illegals, especially those that come here pregnant and have their anchor babies here. That's what Analia Mejia supports. That's what Analia Mejia embraces. Folks, you have options. And I get it. We live in this time of tribalism, and you want to live in your bubble, and you don't want to talk to the other side. Yes, we can talk to the other side, but folks, we got to be reasonable. Policies that Analia Mejia embraces are not good for New Jersey. They're not good for the 11th Congressional. They're just not. I'm not even being partisan about it. I'm not even, folks, trust me, I'm not even trying to be hyperbolic, but I almost have to be to hopefully make you realize that she's toxic. She's harmful. Okay? Her and other progressives and other radicals, what are we seeing? We're seeing the ROI and the receipts on progressive policy. We're seeing it across the river in New York City. We're seeing it across the country in California. We're seeing it predominantly blue states like here in New Jersey. Folks, you have a great option, a great alternative this November. And that's Joe Hathaway, especially in the 11th Congressional District. Think about that, folks. Learn about Joe Hathaway. Again, visit joehathawayforcongress.com. Once again, Joe Hathaway, FOR, Congress.com. Make sure you follow him on Instagram and X and check out his platform, folks. It's very commonsensical. I know it sounds repetitive, and I know it sounds almost like a cliche, but it isn't. It really is that simple, because folks, at the end of the day, sometimes the easiest solution is the most obvious one. And that's Joe Hathaway, CD11. So I do want to thank him for his time here tonight on the broadcast. Folks, it's a little after 7 here on the East Coast. We appreciate you making this a part of your Monday night viewing. As always, it's time for final thoughts. And folks, I talk about it all the time on this program. There is no shortage of bad actors here in New Jersey. Whether it's in higher education, little soy boys like Joe Amaditis, over there at Woke State University in Montclair, do-nothing government employees like Maria Rodriguez, also employed at Woke State University at Montclair, awful journalists like Tom Moran, Charles Stile, Matt Friedman, Jay Lassiter, okay? Activists who do nothing for the state of New Jersey. Patricia Campos Medina and her useless husband, Bob, Hetty Rosenstein, Nydia Morsi, more on her later, Lauren Albrecht with the Iran State Equality, Caleb Burrell, or even elected officials, folks. Assembly people like Katie Brennan and Ravi Bala, two awful assembly people here in New Jersey. Or downright lazy council people in Hoboken like Joe Quintero and Phil Cohen. Or Joel Brooks in Jersey City. But folks, during this election cycle, when you expect honesty from journalists in New Jersey, and let's be honest, you're not getting that from the establishment media. More on that later during a special comment. But when I think of dishonest journalism, folks, and I think of lazy journalism, let's be very fair about something. And this is not libel, this is not slander, both because I can prove how lazy and quite frankly, how bad the journalism is. Folks, I think of the editor of Insider NJ, Max Pizarro. Oh, I'll get to Uncle Dave in a minute. Okay? Certainly Uncle Dave is one of them, right? But we'll get to Max Pizarro in a minute. Let's start with Uncle Dave. Folks, who Uncle Dave consistently on this show I have to be the one to educate you all on the really bad job that he does. And folks, look no further than the little Mickey Mouse show that he hosts with Mickey Mouse traffic, and especially with Mickey Mouse guests. And this past week was no exception on Hold That Thought, where he got to interview another enabler and coddler of illegals here in New Jersey and anchor babies galore, Nydia Morsi, the executive director of Make the Road New Jersey. Now, instead of asking tough questions of Nydia, as always, Uncle Dave loves to coddle illegals. Uncle Dave loves to coddle progressive policies on his show. And again, in this week's edition of a show that nobody watches, check out this interaction with Nydia Morsi. Folks, it's embarrassing.
Nydia Morsi is the executive director at Make the Road New Jersey, the immigrants' rights advocacy organization. Nydia, I know that's a succinct way of explaining what Make the Road does, but welcome. Good to see you.
No, it's a bullshit way of describing what Nydia and these other retards do at Make the Road New Jersey. But let's watch this exchange, folks, and how blatantly disingenuous it is.
Thank you. You too.
Can you take a quick second to tell people about Make the Road?
Absolutely.
And some of the programs that you offer?
Absolutely. Make the Road New Jersey is a member-led organization that fights for respect and dignity for immigrant and working class people. We do that in 3 ways. We have physical community centers in Elizabeth, Passaic, and Perth Amboy. And
mind you, folks, they get grant money from Trenton. So if you're ever upset about where your tax dollars go to, it goes to fund bullshit organizations like Make the Road New Jersey and enable this lazy woman to probably make $100,000 a year scratching her ass. But let's continue.
Provide, we have a legal services team, a social services team, and an organizing team. Our legal team provides support around labor, housing, and immigration law. We have
again, using our taxpayer dollars. Folks, if you need a reason to get pissed off about how your tax dollars are spent, look no further than whether it's bullshit organizations like this one, Amy Torres with the New Jersey Alliance for Immigrant Justice, sitting at home, flipping through her phone, right? Deciding whether to buy Grubhub or Uber Eats. And that's probably the most difficult part of her day. While earning $100,000 of of your tax money, right? To pay for these bullshit organizations. Let's continue.
A driving school that allows people to prepare for the written portion of the exam in Spanish. We provide support for folks.
Great. Yeah. Like more Latinas driving. Like I need that. As if I need that headache in my life. Really? Have you seen Latinas driving?
Folks that are interested in applying for Cover All Kids and similar programs that come from our members who are identifying need in the community. And the heart of the organization is the organizing work that we do. And so every single week across all 3 cities, members are coming to our centers to participate in Know Your Rights trainings. And then
yeah, I mean, when they're not having babies here already illegally, they're here illegally, and maybe having anchor babies here. I mean, let's not forget that reality, David.
Also to learn about the campaigns that we are moving together.
And there's training in there, right? I mean, you kind of rose through the ranks there, no?
Yes. So I started as a volunteer.
Yes. So tell me you've never had a real job without telling me you've never had a real job. I mean, that's the best way to describe Nydia Morrissey. But God forbid Uncle Dave would ever challenge her on this bullshit, right? But again, that would require Dave, wait for it, to have integrity. But more on that.
At Make the Road when I was 19 years old, became then the youth organizer, then the lead organizer, the director of.
So you've been working for Make the Road New Jersey for 40 years now, right? So 19 plus 40. Like, Amor, you look 60 years old. I mean, is the job really stressing that out? I'm just curious.
Organizing and the deputy director, and 16 months ago, I became the director.
I feel like we have to reset a little bit here. Delaney Hall is still at the center of discussion, although the temperature has cooled significantly there.
How's it cool, David, when we're still seeing ICE agents and employees at the facility being openly attacked and harassed by demonstrators? Maybe some within our own organization or others. How is it cool? See, folks, this is what infuriates me about Uncle Dave. Never mind the fact that he's lazy. All right, let's be honest about how lazy Uncle Dave is. Okay, but like, how politically myopic are you, David? Like, do you not see live streaming going on from Delaney Hall? You're still seeing criminals and out-of-state actors coming into New Jersey, picking fights with law enforcement, harassing, and in some instances trying to assault ICE agents. So if that's cooling the temperature down, I mean, I don't know what the hell you're looking at then.
Can you tell us what's happening now inside first and then outside if you can?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's important to place Delaney Hall in a national context first. So under the Trump administration, Delaney Hall was the first detention center to open up. With its opening, New Jersey became.
Wait, again, folks, a little bit of history lesson here for Nydia. And I know for Uncle Dave, because he's like 89 years old. So ya como ya está muy viejito, ya la mente ya no funciona bien para Uncle Dave. But folks, you don't remember Delaney Hall opened during the Obama administration, right? Like, Delaney Hall originally was a facility for rehabilitation for substance abuse. And then during the Obama administration, during 2011, again, correct me if I'm wrong, Barack Hussein Obama was president, not Donald Trump. And Delaney Hall has been there as an immigration detention facility when under the auspices of the 44th president, who deported more illegals than any president before him or even after him. But again, you would think that Uncle Dave would do his homework. I mean, I know he studies menus. I mean, look at him. He's disgusting. But like, he would study the facts. Delaney Hall has been in existence detaining illegals since 2011. So to just let her get away with that bullshit, I mean, again, it reminds you why Uncle Dave is the epitome and ground zero for lazy journalism.
Became the state with the most amount of ice beds on the entire East Coast. That remains true even till today. We all know that the first raid that took place under the Trump administration happened in Newark, New Jersey, because of our.
I mean, this is painful.
New Jersey is uniquely situated. We are the warehouse state. We have access to Newark Airport. We have a vast highway system. And so we really are ground zero for detention. And what is happening at Delaney Hall and the Elizabeth Detention Center should serve as is a pilot for what the Trump administration intends to move all across the country. And so we want to make sure that we're organizing across the country for Delaney and for EDC. And as you know, in late May,
Tell people what EDC is.
the Elizabeth Detention Center, which remained open even despite the ban that passed in 2020, because CoreCivic, the billionaire private company that owns it, filed a suit against the state of New Jersey. As you know, at the end of May, in late May, after more than 3 months of escalation by people detained inside, there was a hunger strike that was announced that went on for more than a hunger and a labor strike, that went on for more than 20 days. What we know is that there was significant retaliation. One of the first experiences we had of that was Martin Soto, who was there was an attempt to unjustly transfer him. He was ultimately transferred to the Elizabeth Detention Center. We know that.
Yes, because he's here illegally. He has an order of deportation. So when people like Nydia Morsi or retards like Uncle David Cruz, want to talk about due process for illegals, there is due process. It's called an order of deportation. If you're here illegally, immigration judge signed that order of deportation, and that subsequently is what gets him deported. But again, you would think that sort of intellectual honesty would come from garbage journalism, but it wouldn't, because you're not getting that from Uncle Dave.
Visitation was paused for a very long time. It has come back, but still confusing and intermittent. Attorney visitation was paused. Commissary was paused.
This isn't a hotel, Nydia. This isn't the Marriott or the Hampton Inn. Like, stop with the bullshit. You're there because you're detained because you're here illegally. Like, people like Nydia Morsi piss me off, like among other activists as well, because it just seems like they expect like these detention centers to be, I don't know, like a Marriott or a Days Inn or a Hampton. I mean, my God, what do you expect? A continental breakfast? Like, come on. But again, folks, this is the same type of virtue signaling and sanctimonious bullshit you come to expect from these professional activists that have never had a real job in their life. And of course, they're enabled by do-nothing journalists like David Cruz.
Probably the most significant and the most family damaging was the fact that of the 800 people that were detained at the moment of the announcement of the hunger and labor strike, just less than 100 continue to be in Delaney. And that doesn't mean that Delaney Hall isn't full. It is full again. But of the
it's full because ICE agents are detaining illegals here in New Jersey. That's your job, Nydia. That's the problem with people like you and others that somehow look at enforcing federal immigration law as simple. It isn't. It's doing their job. And guess what? You want to complain about closing Delaney Hall? Guess what's going to happen, Mija? Again, this is just for the brain dead people that work at Make the Road New Jersey, that watch David's show, that somehow look to David for like legitimacy and facts. That's not true. Guess what? You want to close these centers? Be my guest. When Juan, Jose, y Pablito, y Dieguito want to get transferred, guess what's going to happen? They'll send them to Montana, I don't know, New Orleans, Alabama, and then you'll still be bitching and moaning. Acuérdate, women like Nydia Morsi remind us all the time, especially these professional activists, que mujeres, women. Un día joden porque sí, un día joden porque no. It's like women like Nydia Morsi live to bitch and they bitch to live. But that is today's modern professional organizer.
folks that were present in late May. So many have been transferred out to
Yeah,
Colorado and to
in
Louisiana.
in an effort to break that that strike. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So let me just move further here.
Yeah.
The demonstrations outside have been going on for more than a year before it became a national story, which people, sometimes forget. But your teams and other allies pulled out
Absolutely.
after things got out of hand, no?
So, I mean, I think it's important to remember, the in the moments that we witnessed outside escalation,
Yeah.
those were moments in which there was federal agent ICE presence and state
Yeah.
police presence, and so it's
Yeah.
really important.
Yeah, because guess what? And again, folks, we don't have to finish watching this. I think you get the picture here. Okay, I don't think you have to get. I think you get the full picture here. What we are seeing have been seen are professional agitators, whether here in New Jersey or out of state, that come to New Jersey to look to pick fights with federal agents who are just simply doing their jobs, or employees working at the detention center. But you would think that there'd be a shred of integrity for Uncle Dave to even push back and say, hey, maybe there are professional agitators out there picking fights with law enforcement. But of course, leave it to Uncle Dave to bring on another sob story guest on that bullshit show of his that nobody watches, let's be honest. Okay? Just the fact that I watched this clip, I mean, I'm not sure if it counts as a view, but you get the picture here, folks. It's just the typical lazy journalism that we're getting from Uncle Dave, because if he had any shred of integrity or credibility, he would push back on professional activists like this, who he has on his bullshit show regularly. But again, that would require Uncle Dave, el huevón, el vago que no sirve para nada porque es basura, to, wait for it, to have integrity. But we all know, as usual, that Uncle Dave doesn't have any. Speaking of lazy journalists, from one huevón que no hace nada to another huevón que no hace nada, let's think about Max Pizarro. The most feminine looking, y si tú quieres ver más o menos, you can always rely on Max Pizarro to reinforce the más o menos that is Maxi. Okay? But this is interesting, folks, and I got to tell you, I mean, I was laughing at this, and leave it to Maxi to allow the publishing of some bullshit editorials. And you gotta love this one. It was by this little soy boy named Guy Centrone. And folks, again, you just have to laugh at this. Okay. Apparently, according to guest contributor Guy Centrone, due process is an American right, even at Delaney Hall. So again, I'm sure as they were collaborating and talking about this, and in between maybe blowing each other over this, who knows? But Guy Centrone writes the following: I held a sign that read, "Due process is a right," outside of Delaney Hall. It was a Sunday morning after July 4th, and the place was relatively quiet, save for the visitors who had come to see their detained loved ones. Their stories were impossible to ignore. One woman was a post office supervisor and an American citizen. She told me her husband had been detained there for several months. Gee, I wonder why. You think maybe because he's here illegally? I don't know. When she arrived to visit him, his, quote, unit had apparently been changed overnight, so her visitation request no longer matched. At first, she was denied access because of this apparent administrative error. Later, she was allowed in for what I can only imagine were a few precious minutes, since visitors seemed to be called by units in shifts. Here's another one here. Another young woman showed me the now viral video of ICE officers smashing the windows of her car before taking her husband into custody. See, folks, this is what happens. When you're stopped by ICE and they're telling you they have an order of deportation, it's the same as being arrested. Now, if you don't want to come quietly or cooperate, this is what tends to happen. But again, God forbid Max Pizarro used any critical thinking, because ya tú sabes que Max Pizarro, just, 2 steps shy of a retard as far as I'm concerned. But let's continue. There are 2 children that come with her to visit their father. She told me her younger daughter, who looked to be about the same age as my own son, had been struggling with severe mental health issues since the father's detention. She has even spoken about wanting to kill herself. Folks, this is sob story central here, but what do you expect? about Max Pizarro publishing sob story bullshit like this from someone like Guy Citron. Here's the next one. I'm not going to read you this whole bullshit column, but you get the picture. There was also a man who had come to visit a friend. He spoke about enough English to communicate, but there appeared to be a problem with his friend's prison identification. He was looking for, quote, a Lopez. He was told there were many inside. After waiting for nearly an hour, he was informed that his friend had either been released or transferred to another facility. The man had arrived by bus and likely spent hours getting there only to leave without ever learning what happened to the person he came to see. Folks, again, this is not the Marriott. This is not the Hampton Inn. If you're here illegally, there are consequences. And for example, and again, just as a reminder here, during the 4 years of Joe Biden, you never once heard Max Pizarro voice an objection at the flooding of illegals into New Jersey. I mean, what does he care? He's at home all day scratching his ass and playing with his dick because that's what Max Pizarro does. He earns $100,000 a year, sitting at home, jugando con los huevos de él, and maybe occasionally publishing a couple columns a week, if that. While we saw the influx of illegals into this country, while we saw the oversaturation of our social services, while we saw taxpayer dollars going to putting up illegals in hotels across the river in New York. But again, no te preocupes, because Max Pizarro is at home scratching his dick, not caring what regular people have to be subjected to. And that's why Donald Trump got reelected, to help A, secure the border, and B, make sure we get illegals out of the country, because they do provide a serious harm to us in our communities, overcrowd our schools with their anchor babies. You saw the impact on housing and rents. The Federal Reserve provided a report, which I talked about last week. You think Max Pizarro, for once, would actually do some real work and have some, wait for it, integrity to talk about that, about the harmful economic impact that illegals have, not just in New Jersey, but the country? Of course not. That will require Max Pizarro to do some real work. So while he and, while he's, multitasking, blowing Guy Citron or blowing back, or they're mutually blowing each other and publishing bullshit like this. Folks, this is why people lose faith in establishment media or media in general. Publishing bullshit columns like this. Okay? Not even being remotely intellectually honest, but again, that's Max Pizarro. I mean, it makes me wonder, to be intellectually honest, that means you would have to have an intellect, and as we all know, Max Pizarro doesn't have it. But this is the typical type of bullshit editorials we've come to expect from Insider NJ. And whenever there's any real reporting, let's be honest, again, I'll shout out to Fred Snowflake, who I had the privilege of seeing last week when yours truly was moderating one of many town halls I'll be doing, not just for Senate candidates, but for upcoming House candidates as well, into the summer and the fall months leading up into Election Day. Now, I was in beautiful South Brunswick in Middlesex County this past Friday to moderate a town hall for U.S. Senate candidate Justin Murphy. And I had the privilege and pleasure of running into Fred Snowflake, really the only journalist that actually does any real work at Insider NJ. Now, when I saw Fred, of course, I was like, hey, what's up, man? Good to see you. I'm assuming you have to cover this because we all know Max Pizarro doesn't do shit. He doesn't leave his house. Okay? Now, shout out to Fred for a good column, but you would think that maybe Fred, and I don't blame Fred for this, because I guarantee you, the minute that Fred Snowflake told Max Pizarro, oh, I went to a really informative town hall hosted by the generational talent in Garden State Media, Fernando Uribe, he did a really good job. I bet you, because Max is a petty motherfucker, okay? He's a petty bitch. And I bet you he did not want my name anywhere near the column. Because that would require maybe people learning like, oh shit, people actually do work like Fernando Uribe, not Max Pizarro. And so it won't, see if I'm not. Right? Okay. But of course, shout out to Fred Snowflake. As he wrote, Justin Murphy may be the most anonymous Senate candidate in the nation. Not his fault, you understand. Murphy, a Republican from Burlington County, is not only running a blue state. His opponent, Cory Booker, is a national figure and potential presidential candidate in 2028. And that, Murphy suggests, can work to his advantage. And I was there because he made these points repeatedly. While Booker campaigns across the nation, Murphy says he will be campaigning in New Jersey. To that end, Murphy visited the local American Legion in Middlesex County town Friday night for a town hall. He was in Mercer County Thursday night and plans to hold at least one town hall in all of the New Jersey's 21 counties. About 70 people attended. Not bad for a summer evening. Yeah, that's right. Actually, it was a good turnout. And I'll be moderating additional town halls in the coming weeks and months. Let's hope Fred Snowflake tends to mention my name, and hopefully Max Pizarro isn't a petty bitch and, decides to include my name. Because God forbid, Max Pizarro did any real journalism. But you know who does real journalism, folks? My good friend, David Wildstein at the New Jersey Globe. And guess what David did? David was more than happy, and again, love you, David, for doing this, for publishing all the link necessary for the town hall that I hosted, moderated by Fernando Uribe. Because unlike Max Pizarro, David Wildstein does real work, does real journalism. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's what's refreshing about the New Jersey Globe. They're doing real journalism. They're covering and discussing town halls and who moderates them. You think Max Pizarro will leave his house to moderate a town hall? This lazy motherfucker barely left his house to go see Troy Singleton for 20 minutes. And that's probably the most amount of work that this lazy bitch will do all summer. And that's Max Pizarro, folks. Un huevón que no sirve para nada. But that's what you expect from the editor-in-chief at Insider NJ. But real journalism like the New Jersey Globe, and I'm grateful to David for publishing a story and linking the town hall I moderated this past week. So again, folks, shout out to David Wildstein, who's doing real journalism, unlike, Uncle Dave, who's home playing with his dick. I mean, let's be honest. If he, at this point, if he can even see it, which I doubt. Or Max Pizarro, who's just home, earning a nice salary, also not doing it. So shout out to David Wildstein, real journalism with the New Jersey Globe. And again, folks, it should remind you the reason that people have lost faith in journalism really is because of bad actors that I like to list all the time. Not just these people, but others I talk about on a daily basis. Here on this show, folks, it's real conversations and real journalism with real traffic because it's real talk. Don't accept imitations. This is the standard. Okay? These clowns, they just play checkers. We play chess here on Real Talk. And those are my final thoughts. Folks, a special comment here tonight. And certainly want to thank everybody I ran into last week at a very important conservative influencer summit in Basking Ridge, New Jersey, hosted by Heidi, Defending the Republic. Of course, in attendance were great patriots like Wake Up NJ and NJ Stands Up and Teacher and NJ and others, candidates, other influencers alike, patriots. Talk about the importance of independent media. And I had a chance to address the crowd there. You can check out my social media. You'll see my speech there, which isn't very long, but it had a point. It had a purpose. Because in a state like New Jersey, folks, where the establishment media continues to disappoint us and quite frankly lie to us or not do a good job, and take your pick, NJ.com, NorthJersey.com, with clowns like Charles Style, Chucky, Political New Jersey, with lazy potheads like Matt Friedman, who publishes the New Jersey Political that nobody reads, let's be honest. And I feel bad for the editor at Political NJ because, Dustin Rasiopi is actually a good guy. Served our country in the Navy. He's a good editor. So unfortunately, he has to supervise useless retards like Matt Friedman, but such is life, folks. Okay? Or Insider NJ with useless people like Max Pizarro and Jay Lassiter and John Van Vliet and Alan Steinberg. But folks, here at this Influencer Summit, you know what we did? We decided to unite. And whether this is a picture of the independent Avengers and independent media, you can call us whatever you like. But we're committed to helping New Jerseyans and waking them up to make sure that we hold those in power accountable, that we're calling out bad journalism. That's what I do on this show. I call out bad journalism all the time. Because they're at home scratching their ass, playing with their dicks, earning nice money, and they're not really doing anything for us. That's not the case here on this show, folks, in other forms of independent media, helping to inform you, the taxpayer, you, the commuter, you, the homeowner. That's what we're doing. So it's a privilege to interact with all of these great patriots last week. And we'll continue to do that. And we'll continue to have more influencer summits because we need to do that, because we love our state. We hate seeing it going down the tubes as it is economically, sociologically, everything else. We're not going to let that happen. We're going to stand up for New Jersey residents, especially in a time when the establishment media in New Jersey isn't doing that. That's the difference between us and the clowns I just mentioned. And there's no shortage of them, folks. Here on this show, again, nothing boosted, no paid ads. It's all organic traffic here, folks, because, again, people tune in, not just conservatives, not just moderates and independents, but even Democrats, progressives. Folks, it's always the people that hate you the most that watch you the most. And that's ground zero here on this program. So once again, I want to thank all the great patriots I ran into last week. I look forward to more influencer summits throughout the summer and into the fall months as we lead up to Election Day this November. The fight's too important, folks. The battle's just begun, but we're here to advocate for New Jersey residents because we need to now more than ever. And that's my special comment. Folks, once again, I want to thank Joe Hathaway, Republican candidate running in the 11th Congressional District, here for his appearance on Real Talk. And once again, folks, Real Talk is brought to you by and sponsored by Duran Entities.
Duran Entities has now joined Real Talk with Fernando Uribe and Fernando Uribe Media. Enjoy delicious food, excellent watch parties, and a wonderful atmosphere at any of our 3 incredible restaurants. Son Cubano, located at 40-4 Riverwalk Place in West New York, New Jersey. Ventanas at the Modern, located at 200 Park Avenue in Fort Lee, New Jersey. And Solas, located at 25 River Drive South in downtown Jersey City. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you there.
That's right, folks. Can't say enough. Thank you to Duran Entities sponsoring this week's edition of Real Talk here on Jersey First TV. You can visit Solas in downtown Jersey City, Ventanas at the Modern in Fort Lee, or Son Cubano in West New York, folks. 3 amazing restaurants with 3 great crowds, 3 great vibes, 3 great menus, and 3 great experiences. Visit Duran Entities today. That's our show for this week, folks. Once again, I want to thank Joe Hathaway, Republican candidate running in the 11th Congressional District, here tonight on the show. And don't forget to like us on Facebook, of course, follow us on Instagram and X. Don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube. And when you get your podcast on Spotify or SoundCloud, download Jersey First and take it with you during these summer weeks, whether you're driving to or from Tiki Mondays down in Point Pleasant, walking your dog, hey, looking after your elderly neighbors or kids during these hot summer days. Again, folks, please stay indoors. Please stay hydrated. Please stay cool. Whatever it is you're doing, I'm pretty sure you have your smartphone or your tablet with you. Download Jersey First, folks. You'll never be disappointed. Once again, folks, here, always leading the way, it is Jersey First TV, of course, educating and advocating for the residents here in the great state of New Jersey. Folks, nobody does it better than Jersey First TV. Of course, brand new episodes of Real Talk premiere every Monday night here. Of course, check your listings for start times. And brand new episodes of Bridging the Gap with Zach Dora and Tyler Simpson premiere every Thursday. Again, check your listings for start times. Folks, what a privilege it is to be on this dream team of independent media, folks. That's right. That's what we do here at Jersey First TV. So shout out to Zach and Tyler. Keep up the great work, gentlemen. Proud to partner with you here on Jersey First TV. And always remember, folks, if it's unbiased, unfiltered, and unafraid, it's always Real Talk celebrating 6 years and counting here on the Jersey First Television Network. That's right. I am the generational talent in Garden State Media, and certainly your leader for trustworthy opinion journalism. That's right, folks. The most handsome face that runs the place. That's right. It's me, Fernando Uribe. Have a great rest of your week, folks. Enjoy the World Cup finals. As you can see there, I'm rooting for Team España in my blood, in my roots, in my genes. Let's go España. Hopefully get into the World Cup final this Sunday at MetLife Stadium in East Rutherford. We'll see what happens. Again, folks, please party responsibly, and we'll see you next week here as the editor of HuffPost, James De Los Santos, joins us live next week right here on Real Talk. You'll have a lot to say about what's going on in media and much more, folks. Mark your calendars next Monday night. James De Los Santos, the founder, editor, and publisher of HuffPost, joins us live on Real Talk. Folks, have a great rest of your week. Again, thanks for stopping by. And always remember, it's New York versus everybody for the rest of the summer, representing our New York Knicks. Always remember, stay classy, everyone.